at noon on Wednesday, December 26th, 2018. We are in City Council Chambers, at 10 West, oh my goodness, I better start over. No, I'm kidding. I won't, but 10 West State Street. There we go. Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy New Year. So there's a notice to the public that reads, the Mayor and City Council welcome comment from the public during discussion of any of the agenda items. Please step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and limit the time you use to present your remarks so that others may be given the opportunity to speak. And as usual, it's just at the discretion of the mayor and council to respond to specific questions or comments, or to have a staff member respond during the meeting. You can always follow up with after the meeting as well. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order. And please stand if you are able to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
Thank you. Are there council or administrator comments right today?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call. Sorry. Skipped right over roll call. Please.
Lamer.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Weirin.
Here.
Cahill.
Here.
Gowdy.
Here.
Hoop.
Here.
Isom.
Here.
Okay, now is the time for comments. Any comments?
I would just, a short comment to, we are closing in on the end of 2018, and it's been a rough year for a lot of people, and let's hope for the best in 2019 as we continue to rebuild, help those that need the help, and move forward to make our community a better place.
I second that. Thank you. Any other comments from the council or administrator?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Martin.
Yes.
Weirin.
Yes.
Cahill.
Yes.
Gowdy.
Yes.
Hoop.
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Lamer.
Yes.
Thank you. And would you please read those items, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor. Approved council minutes for December 10th. Approved the bill list, $1,246,800.17. Approval of the 2019 council meeting schedule and announcing trick or treat on October 31st from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Receipt of the civil service new hire list for the fire marshal. New tree trimmer, custom tree care, and resolution approving salary adjustment for city administrator Jessica Kinzer.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our first resolution, I will entertain a motion to approve a tentative 2018-231 resolution accepting subordination agreement for property interest at 904 West Nevada Street.
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
All right, Michelle Sponheimer, Housing Community Development Director. This is a subordination agreement for one of our previous lead hazard control projects. This is something that you guys are used to seeing now at this point. When we do the work, we do have a lien that we place against the property for a period of time, and the owners in this case are looking to refinance their loan, and therefore we're asking that we go into a subordinate position on the property for our remaining lien amount. At this point, 80% has been forgiven, and there's only 20% remaining. The new mortgage amount plus the remaining lien are still below the appraised value of the home, and therefore we would anticipate that we could recover should the home have to be sold. Otherwise, it will be forgiven within a year's period. So with that, I'd recommend approval, and you'll have a public hearing at your next meeting on the 14th, January.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Any public comments or questions on this? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. So roll call, please.
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Goudy,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Lamer,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Okay. The next item, we have 2 items related to the Iowa River Trail, and I would entertain a motion, if you're willing, to approve both. Resolution 2018-232, approving contract change order number 2 for the PCC Iowa River Trail project for general supplies for Boulder Contracting, an increase of $24,599.66. And Resolution 2018-233, approving engineer's estimate of completion and accepting the PCC Iowa River Trail with a final project cost in the amount of $819,018.83.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded, and discussion. Mr. Nichol.
Good afternoon, Justin Nichol, Public Works Director. As stated in the memo, this is a change order to rectify the final quantities as the trail was constructed from 12th Street out to Summit Street, and then the subsequent engineer statement of completion for the Iowa River Trail. There aren't any city funds to be expended on this project. There's either state trail funds or the remaining match is to be paid by Trails Incorporated. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question here. Well, I realize that we are the fiduciary agent for Trails, Inc. I also realize there's staff time devoted to this. I've heard in the past that it amounts to up to 10% admin contributed and so on. I have a caution for that, in that we need all hands on deck, despite and including some of our vacancies. So I'm concerned about the crunch time and the work that is required to support this project. I'm supporting the project, but I'm reluctant on the admin.
Understood. And this project is complete, so point taken, Councilor Martin, that there would still be staff time spent on this, but I think 10% would be a overestimation. But I understand your concerns.
Good question. Could we recover any of that cost from them?
To this point, I don't know that we have billed them. I take it back. We have billed them for construction, inspection, and administration. We have not for example, my time that I spend during the design and then during the project. I think we probably could certainly have that discussion with Trails, and certainly as subsequent phases go forward.
Thanks.
Are there other questions for Mr. Nichol? Okay.
Could I just throw something out, Justin? Now that we've cleared the city limit, would we expect the county to assist them as they build on through the county, or would it still be us?
I don't know about expectations, but you may remember that the trail property as it goes all the way to the Marshall-Hardin County line is owned by the city of Marshalltown, even as it is outside the city limits of Marshalltown. So, again, certainly a discussion we could have, not one that I think, not a subject we've broached yet to this point.
Other council questions?
I have, thanks to Mr. He reminded me one of our citizens asked me a question and I couldn't answer it. Since we own that piece of right of way for where the old railroad went, is it considered inside the corporate limits, or do we have to actually bring it into the corporate limits because we own it, but I don't think it's in the corporate limits, is it?
It's not.
No, and it's, think of it very much like the airport. We own property out around the airport where it's located in the county, but we own it as the city.
Okay.
So can I reiterate, Justin, that no city funds are going toward this?
That's correct.
It is being paid by the grants and the state, federal
That's
funding.
correct.
No city funds.
We will get 100% reimbursement, I guess, minus my staff time
All right.
for the
thank you.
project.
Thank you.
Okay, other council questions? Are there public questions, comments? Yes.
Anna Wolvers, 213 Thomas Drive, Marshalltown. I'm appreciative that there are no city funds being spent, but as a member and one who's given countless hours attending meetings and trainings and fundraisers for another 501c3 that has been pushing for a splash pad for 6 years, we have consistently been told there is no staff time or money for grant writing. We've also been turned down from local grants that we've paid out of pocket to hire grant writers for. And it just kind of seems, I don't know, discriminatory or pre-tornado mindset to me to hear this project in total is going to cost over 4 times what a splash pad would. We've lost lives due to not having safe options. And as Splash for Life, we've sent numerous letters to city requesting help, support, even funding requests to get signage along the river for safety, and they go unanswered. Here's one sent August 14th, 2017, still unanswered. Resubmitted in February 1st of 2018, still unanswered. So I guess I just question, if you can find time, even 10% of staff, why are not all options equally considered?
Thank you, Ms. Wolfers. Are there other public comments or questions? Okay. We have a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Cahill?
Yes.
Gowdy?
Yes.
Hoop?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Weimer?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Weirin?
Yes. Thank you. Next, we have 6 change orders for the public safety building project. And again, I would entertain these as a whole. The first, Resolution 2018-235, approving for Tony's Plumbing and Heating an increase of $1,744. The next is Resolution 2018-236 for construct an increase of, and this is for the landscaping work, correct?
And sidewalks.
And sidewalks, $116,898.09. Resolution 2018-237 for Caliber Concrete, an increase of $1,795. Resolution 2018-238 for electrical for DeVries Electric, an increase of $21,021.44. Resolution 2018-239 for Caliber Concrete, an increase of $2,626. And finally, Resolution 2018-240 for Hilsebeck Schacht, an increase of $801. So I'll take a motion and a second.
So moved.
Do you want to separate them?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. That's to approve all of them, correct? Okay. Discussion.
I have one.
By all
question.
means.
The item for the landscaping and sidewalks, did we do that on time and material? Did we do that with the bid item?
We did that with the bid item, and I should point out that
That isn't all of it, though, yet, is it?
that should cover it. So the total change order is for almost 117,000. The landscaping and the sidewalks is about 109,000 of that. At a discussion earlier this fall, I can't remember exactly which meeting, we had a budget of 110,000 for landscaping and sidewalk. This was a second or third iteration. The first price tag was more than our $110,000 budget. So yes, we got back within the $110,000 budget.
But once they move all those bricks and all that crap out in front when they're done, we're going to have to do some work there yet.
Yes,
so.
but this contemplates that.
Oh,
This
that's
would,
in
this
with-
would be for the total length of sidewalk.
But we're not paying them for it yet.
No.
Okay,
This
all
is
right.
this is
Gotcha.
a change order to make the contract official.
Okay.
We pay the bill when the work is done.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Are there council questions?
Yes, one here. As I've said before, I don't like budget change orders. It's a fact of life. And following the budget for the new public safety building, I'm still of the belief that we're well within our budget range and so on. If you would confirm that and kind of say where we are, I'd appreciate
Yes,
it.
I believe the finance director gave an update at our last meeting that we still had in excess of $1 million unencumbered or unspent on this project. We still have some milestones to get through before we're complete, but it would be my intent that we currently are under budget, and it'll be my intent that we're under budget when the project is finished.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, are there any public comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Nichol. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Gowdy?
Yes.
Hoop?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Lamer?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Weirin?
Yes.
Cahill?
Yes.
Next, I will entertain a motion approving Resolution 2018-241 to rescind Resolution 2018-208 and to approve a revised offer to buy real estate with Cone Esri for the sale of city-owned property located at 213 East Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
This is an item that was before you previously. You had accepted the $1 purchase price from Cohen Esri and approved a purchase agreement with them. As we had gone back through the purchase agreement, they found some items that needed to change, all very minor, and have brought forward a revised purchase price of $25,000. It's also been communicated to me that they have secured the neighboring properties as part of that project as well. And so what's before you is the revised offer to purchase with the $25,000 purchase price, and I believe a change in the number of units, and really ensuring that the language shows site control as required by the Iowa Finance Authority.
Thank you. Are there any council questions?
So the,
Yes.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That parking lot is used by both the Orpheum and by the secondary education of the college. Where are those people going to park now? Are we just moving them? If this goes through, will they just be moved onto the streets?
Yeah, there's other lots in the area as well off of Church Street, and so there are some other neighboring parking lots. Parking is also going to be one of those things that's examined within our downtown master plan as well, and so there might be recommendations that we need to secure more parking, or that we need to better label our parking so that people really do know where to park. So that's where I don't see an issue with moving forward with this at this point in time. For those others, there is some close parking on Church Street.
I was wondering about, since the hospital is kind of downsizing our hospital, the lot on it'd be the north side of Main Street, right next to 3rd Avenue, that the hospital owns, right next to the Orpheum.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could work out a trade that they buy that, and we'll trade our parking lot for that one, and let the developer work out that trade, so that opens that whole parking lot corner up to anybody that way.
Yeah, so as pre-tornado, obviously, I don't recall that the hospital had really restricted that parking lot, but ultimately the hospital does own a number of parking lots around that area, and that would certainly be an option that if we need to replace parking as determined by the downtown master plan, that we could certainly pursue those conversations with the hospital.
Okay, well, I guess my conversation is, rather than 25,000, maybe if they work out an agreement that if they're going to take over our parking lot, they'll furnish us the one across the street, so that we don't have any cash involvement in it. Okay.
I was going to say that's certainly an option. It's for you here to vote on today, but that's something where previously you had approved a purchase agreement for $1 with them.
I understand that.
I want to clarify, the building that was adjacent to the Marshalltown Senior Center, is that part of this agreement?
No, because the city has no involvement with that. However,
Correct.
for the developers' plans, they did have that as part of their plans.
And have they secured that, or is that irrelevant to us at this
Yeah,
point?
they have secured that through a purchase agreement and offer to buy.
Okay. That, I know there was a question about that previously, and so I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Other council questions? Okay. Public comment or questions on this issue?
My name is Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue, and I have agreed with council members here before on getting rid of our public parking lots. I think Mr. Lamer once again has given a very good comment. And as my understanding goes, I think the Finance Authority has to agree with this developer's purchase on this parking lot. Am I correct? I guess you don't have to answer me, but is that correct? So I too would have reservation. We know what had happened with our hospital. I was concerned about that, and they did not get the clinic that they had hoped to get out there, and that's why our hospital went bankrupt. So I too reiterate, we need to look at these things cautiously. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other public comments or questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Lamer,
No.
Martin,
Yes.
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Gowdy.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next is a public hearing on the sale of 12, 20, and 26 East State Street. And I declare the public hearing open. And this is with resolutions 2018-242 and 2018-243. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments?
I have not received any written comments.
And are there public comments on this issue?
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue. So I'm speaking as a taxpayer, not as the alternate bidder. This project seems a little dangerous for the city. Previously, Mr. Lamer told us that this project may or may not be successful if we didn't spend the $500,000 to tear the building down in advance of selling it to the developer who we'd been talking to previously before the pre-tornado and before the bids were let, and this developer was late to the bidding table. Mr. Nickel has reminded us many times that, related to the police station, that projects have an overrun of 3 to 5% of this nature. 500,000 is 5% of this bid. So are they really able to complete what they've done? In the past, there have been projects that they've bid out in eastern Iowa which have not met fruition and have been returned to the city after the fact. We're still waiting, of course, I know that they need to have control of the land before the Finance Authority can donate or grant the money to them. Now, they've also asked for TIF money. 40% of all TIF dollars come out of the school system's pocket. The TR just mentioned $640,000 that the school system owes in problems, and that equates to 15 school teachers making $40,000 a year. So we're looking at giving both Cohen Ezra and Landover TIF money, which is going to impact the school's budget even more. And so I think this is a problem from a financial standpoint from the city, not whether I want to save the senior center or whatever, but as a taxpayer, this is a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton. Do you have a comment, Ms. Botter?
Lee Botter, 401 Orchard Drive. And would you please entertain me for just a second, okay? I want to share some information. This is post-tornado. I want you all to remember where we were, and thank you, Councilman Cahill, for making your comments, because we've been through a difficult time this year. We all know that. Nothing's new there. But this was a song that was written by John Roddick. Maybe you guys have heard this song. But bear with me, please, because I want you guys to be reminded of something, okay? Let me get it going here. And I know it's a little out of the ordinary to do this, but bear with me.
Of the life I used to live. But there are miracles when walls fall down and hearts are open wide. And love floods in and breaks and cracks and fills us deep inside. Oh, and even though the winds of change are falling on this town, there are miracles of grace like rain when walls fall down.
I'm going to stop it right there. But if you guys want the full presentation, I'll give it to you later. I'll send it to you. But it leads me into my next comments. As I said earlier, we all know that July 19th was a turning point for our city. When that horrific tornado hit us and left substantial damage in its wake, my family, which is here, on a couple sides here, we were blessed because we dealt with repairable damage to our homes and to our rentals. And we only had to replace one destroyed vehicle. And we only had to deal with a loss of one job through that whole process when Linux sustained the damage that it did. The reason that I share these things is we cannot forget that we've lost much, including our sense of normal. For some, it's meant a loss of everything. It's meant a loss of jobs, vehicles, personal property, homes, and their neighbors in their neighborhoods. I, among many, adopted a family for Christmas. And the person that we adopted as a family, she was so thankful just to get a bed. July 19th, I got to go home and sleep in my own bed. I can't imagine what these people have been through, and I think we're losing touch with that, guys. For several, the Senior Citizen Center was home. And it was their family. I didn't use the Senior Citizen Center, besides going to the Tiny Tim Festival, which was fun, okay? But these guys are grieving, they're upset, and they really feel, at least what I'm hearing, that our leaders are not listening to the petition that was presented and the numerous requests to secure the building from theft and further damage. I went back through all of the minutes, I went back through all of the things that we've done, and I've been to most of the council meetings since the tornado. And it has been repeatedly requested to secure that building, and it was not done so. Several community members, including myself, have raised concerns about the process. As a licensed insurance agent for several decades, I did ask that there were further negotiations taken with the carrier. I did talk about how we handled the settlement. You guys, as a council, have done an excellent job on securing our properties. But I feel like there wasn't the steps taken that needed to be looked at, further looked at. Okay, this brings me to the proposal that's on the table with Landover. There's a proposal for $10,000 for 3 properties. I went back and looked at all the assessments. 12 East State Street, which is a parking lot, is assessed at $40,450. 26 East State Street, which is also a parking lot, is assessed at $31,910. 20 East State Street, which is the senior citizens building, is assessed at $54,500. And yes, I do understand that these are tax exempt properties because they're publicly held. But if you look at the total assessed values that we're looking at, it's $126,860. So this means if we sell those 3 properties at $10,000, we're selling them for 8 cents on the dollar. That's what we refer to by some people, pennies on the dollar. I would agree with that comment. This does not include the cleanup, which we still do not have a bid on demolition yet. I haven't seen a bid. Has anybody seen a bid? It doesn't include the loss of tax revenues due to the 90% annual rebate of 90 incremental taxes for a 10-year period, not to exceed $350,000. If you do the math, that's $35,000 a year. It doesn't include other provisions within the contract that was part of the packet that they want us to do as sellers of the property. Okay, in the resolution, if I can address our attorney, please. In the resolution, I find 2 glaring errors. And I don't know if you guys can pull your resolution up. I know it's a little early, but on the resolution, one of the glaring errors that I found was the sale of the property. It's towards the bottom, under Section 2, to Cohen Airseat Development Group. Underneath the city-owned property here, and it's pursuant to strict compliance, it's going in with for Landover. I'm assuming that that could have a legal issue. Would that be correct if they have incorrect information in there?
If the name is entered incorrectly, I would suggest it be amended.
Okay, so that's one issue that I find. The other glaring issue that I find in there is it says, to quote, whereas the city received no other offer for the property. I sat through meetings, I presented, as did multiple other people. There were other quotes on the table. There were quotes from CGA for the parking lot at 12 East State. Merge had a quote for 20 and 26 East State, which was deemed as incomplete because there was no purchase price attached to it. Mark Aiton's creative proposal for $100,000. After recommendations from city administrator and a vote that was by Gabe had made Councilman Ism made the comment of, and it was seconded to reopen for bids, which we did. That's when the Landover one came in. So I have ongoing questions. Who made the decision not to secure the senior citizens property? Was there any additional discussions with the insurance carrier? Why was Mr. Eaton's proposal thrown out? It was an excellent proposal. It was a win-win-win. And as you make your final decision on doing this today, please remember your duties to the public whom you serve, and please do what's right as we move into 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions?
Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. Everyone knows my position on the senior citizen building. Everyone on this council has heard me speak a number of times. I would like to say that the building, the senior citizen building, has served Marshalltown for 98 years. I have lived here not 98 years, but we were able to secure and use the Veterans Coliseum and that building for all this time. I thank all of those that have been helpful to me with this issue, and it's been very difficult for me to come and speak here today. But I would reiterate what the last speaker said. Please, please, look closely at what you're doing, because this developer out of town, we have local people that are willing to work on that property and have been willing for quite some time. And I would sooner keep our dollars here, and when the Landover Corporation is subject to the Finance Authority to get his tax tokens, there are plenty of places that can be acquired for his property without destroying that 98-year-old building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions? Okay. And is there any more staff review?
Yes, I do have a few items that I would like to address. The error in the resolution with not removing the name Cohen Esri in one part and leaving Landover in another was completely my error. We often recycle resolutions, and I missed that, but it should be Landover Corporation consistently throughout. One of the other items that I will address that was mentioned about no other offers received, when you set the public hearing, you also set a date to accept other offers, which were due on the 18th of December. And so that statement in that resolution was reflecting that no other offers were received by that December date for you to consider here today at this meeting today. So that is a clarification there. It's not saying that there were no other offers in general, but the one that you selected to move forward with, there were no other offers against that after you had made that selection. One of the things I do want to also clarify again is that the Senior Citizen Center, which is a separate 501c3 from the city, is operational and functional at the Nicholas Street Mall and still providing services to residents. And so that is something where they were never associated with the city other than as a renter. And so those senior services are still being provided by that separate 501c3 nonprofit. We are, as we've mentioned before, we're working with them on a solution to relocate them in a remodeled Coliseum when that project would happen. And so those discussions are still underway. The other item I'd like to address is tax increment financing. Ultimately, the calculations and how that comes up, it's not just pulling a number out of the air. Landover Corporation contacted the county assessor to get an approximate assessed value of $1.87 million. That taxable value does change. They would be a multifamily property. We have the multifamily residential rollback that is currently in place. But looking at a 10-year time frame and what a 90% rebate, that's where that not to exceed $350,000 comes from. So there's 3 lots that are owned by the city. No taxes being paid on any of them, where if this project were to be funded with tax credits through the Iowa Finance Authority, we would be looking at a new assessed value of $1.87 million. And so this should be everything that we need at this point from this one. Richard Sova with Landover is here in the audience as well if there's any questions for him.
Are there any council comments or questions?
My question might be, is if this lot then on Main Street becomes valuable at $25,000, and you've got 3 lots there that would far exceed that area for $10,000, then that seems to be a little different there, and maybe the landowner should come in higher than $10,000 to be equal to whatever else we're doing.
Okay, any other questions or comments by the council?
I agree. Do you have a number in mind?
I don't know the square footage
Yeah.
of the lots to make a comparison.
Okay, yeah.
If you're going to go on assessed value, that's probably not a true number either, because houses sell for less than the assessed values. I know that from experience. So I'm just saying that it doesn't seem equal.
I agree.
Mr. Soba, would you like a chance to tell us more about your project again or answer any questions?
Yeah, Richard Sova, Landover Corporation. I'm not sure how to respond to your question. I mean, I appreciate the value thing. The way these properties work, and I know the Cohen Essay project, I know their actually accepted bid at one point was for $1 to buy that parking lot, and that was not an unusual offer, I don't think, on public properties. We have a proposal to develop a property in Marion, Iowa. It's a city-owned property, brand-new property on a brand-new street, and they're going to give it to us for $1, just because they're supporting affordable housing. And the way these deals work, we have to do budgets, and the land price is part of the budget, of course. So the more expenses we have, construction, land costs, and so forth, that determines what kind of rents we can charge. Okay, the rents are kind of set and regulated by the state, of course, but the budget, we can't spend a lot of money to do these deals. Like, we can't buy a piece of land for $1 million and build an affordable housing project. So the lower the price of the land is, the more we can offer tenants in terms of lower rent. And that's just the truth. So we just had a market study done. It was just completed last week, and the market study showed for Marshalltown that actually we had projected rents that were lower than we could have charged actually for the tenants. That's just the way it came out. And I'm not sure we even did that on purpose, but when we did our analysis, we came up with rents which are lower than were actually required. And part of that is because we're trying to build the building as cheap as we can, pay as little as possible for the land, and be very efficient in building the buildings. That's what it's all about, actually, in this type of a project. So, but. Well.
Any questions from the council?
Just a reminder,
yes.
The rents will be rent controlled, or will have,
sure,
it is for low rent family housing.
Right, exactly. And it's I know we had talked earlier about whether the property was going to address 30% AMI, and it does. In our proposal, we're addressing 30%, 40%, and 60%. And like I said, our rents actually came in lower than what's required. So by this, the state just sets a maximum rent. Okay.
And the one piece that, as you gave your explanation, I appreciate that you said you were going to build it as cheaply as possible, and I assume that was not a word. I am hoping that it will be as efficient, financially efficient as possible, but yet providing a quality establishment for people to live in. Can I get your assurance on that piece?
I misspoke.
I wondered about that. But
actually, no.
We do not need more cheaply built housing in our town. We need housing that's affordable.
Actually, the state actually prescribes almost exactly how these buildings are to be built. Even, how much the building has to be brick, what the plumbing fixtures have to look like, quality of the carpet. I mean, it's all set out by the state. Wow. We usually over specify things.
We certainly don't want something that'll be falling apart in 5 years is the concern. So I was hoping we're not doing a cheaply constructed building.
We don't either, because we're going to own it for 30 years.
Very good. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sova. So I will declare the public hearing closed at 12:43. Oh, excuse me. We were past the public comment stage. There's an order.
Okay, well, I can come back at the end. I'm here anyway.
That would be better if it's not related to this.
No, it is related to that. Just, I guess, for clarity and fairness purposes, you're selling one lot for $10,000. You had rescinded a bid for $1 earlier. You've got an entire building that you're accepting an offer here soon for $35. I mean, as a teacher, I know we have to do policies and procedures. It doesn't seem like there's a set policy or procedure on accepting offers for land purchases or development. So just my comment, I guess, $1, $10,000, $35. I mean, somewhere in the middle.
Thank you. Okay, now I declare the public hearing closed at 12:44. And I'll entertain a motion and a second for resolution. Let's see here. I gotta get back to my agenda. Yeah, so it's two resolutions. We're looking at Resolution 2018-242, which is authorizing the sale, and 2018-243, which is expressing intent to consider a development agreement with Landover Corporation for the construction of affordable housing units.
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
We voting on one or two?
Well, I would like to do both at once, but we can do it one at a time. The first one is 242, 2018-242, authorizing the sale of city-owned property located at 12, 20, and 26 East State Street. So, Mr.
I was going to say, and just with that one, if it could be confirmed that that is to amend the name to Landover Corporation throughout.
Yes. So this motion would also make sure that would that be resolution 1 or 2 that you're concerned about? Okay, number 1. So do we still have the same motion and second?
Yes.
Isom Cahill. Okay.
For
All right.
both resolutions?
For the first one. We're taking them
Just
one
for
at
the
a
first
time.
one?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right, roll
Isom?
call, please. Thank
Yes.
Lamer?
No.
Martin?
Yes.
Weirin?
Yes.
Cahill?
Yes.
Gowdy?
No.
Hoop?
No.
Carried, 3-4.
Okay, thank you. And I will entertain a motion for resolution 2018-243, expressing intent to consider a development agreement with Landover Corporation for the construction of affordable housing units with the name throughout to be amended to Landover.
So move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion on this one? Okay, roll call, please.
Lamer?
No.
Martin?
Yes.
Weirin?
Yes.
Cahill?
Yes.
Gowdy?
No.
Hoop?
No.
Isom?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. And I'll take a motion to approve Resolution 2018-244, setting public office hours for City Hall and Carnegie Building Complex. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second? I will second. Is there discussion?
One of the items that I included in the with the resolution was a memo. Councilmember Cahill had asked us to look at what sort of activity we would have over last week, which excluded Friday from that. So it's just Thursday or Monday through Thursday. So what we found was that housing community development, as to be expected, had the most walk-in traffic and phone calls from 4:30 to 5 p.m. with very little to no activity in any other department here in the City Hall complex. Mayor Greer had also asked that we look at our similar-sized cities, and it's kind of a split bag with Ottumwa, Clinton, and Mason City closing at 4:30, Muscatine, Burlington, and Fort Dodge closing at 5 p.m. And so that's really where we're at right now. It's something that I do think is a good move to bring consistency within the building and within the county. One specific example that frequently comes up with people is if you have a hold on your license plates at the county and you're there right about 4:30, and then you have to come to our place. We'll be open, but then you can't go back to the county. So things can be resolved here, but somebody still can't complete their transaction. And if we have consistent hours, I think that's at least one area where things will change. I would also say, and this is something where my HR director, Jill Petermeyer, and I had talked, is this is a morale issue too. We have employees who have families. You know, not everybody has young kids, but there is that aspect as well. And then I believe that the city clerk had sent out an email to all of you talking about the efficiency of covering front desks or covering when people aren't there. If you have a 30-minute lunch hour, that's 30 minutes when, let's say, the city clerk is not available versus an hour. So there are some efficiencies that we can gain there in terms of being able to provide better customer service, hopefully in the target when people are seeking those services.
Comments? Questions?
I did receive a number of calls on this, and they were some asking questions, but again, some were not in favor of doing this. I do appreciate the mini survey we did on the walk-ins, but I am a bit concerned that isn't really showing us what we want to know, because the week before a holiday week, it might not be the best time to have taken that data. And so I am torn with how to do it, and I would feel we do have working people. Again, sometimes it's very difficult to get there by 4:30, and I feel maybe we need to slow down on it a bit and take another survey of it, maybe first week in March or another time that we might get better data. I'm just a little concerned that our data isn't really true to the usage that's being involved.
I concur with Councillor Cahill that too little data is available. I'm concerned about, again, the efficiency of our operation as it relates to our services to the public. I'm also aware of efforts to cross-train and cover. Those are standard operating procedures in other businesses, other public areas. I'm not ready to cast judgment upon this. I'm not opposed to it necessarily. I would wish us to wait, and I would move to table this at this point.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so there's a motion to table, and it's been seconded, so discussion is over. Roll call, please.
Table to when?
There was no date.
Okay. Martin?
Yes.
Weirin?
No.
Cahill?
Yes.
Gowdy?
Yes.
Hoop?
No.
Isom?
No.
Lamer?
Yes.
Motion tabled.
Okay, the last, let's see here. Okay, we have a discussion item here, fiscal year 2020 budget development items.
Yes, this is something that we wouldn't normally intend to put on an agenda here on a meeting that's sort of a special meeting after Christmas, but we are unfortunately, December has 5 Mondays, so there's 3 weeks until our next meeting. And the January 4th meeting, we are planning to have budget items and budget discussion starting. So there's some direction that we need. So I'm going to kind of move through these a little fast because there is a recommendation that's already been written out in front of you. And what I'm looking for is feedback. I don't think that we need to take a formal motion second or vote on any of these, but if there's any of these that would have concern, we would bring them back for further discussion on January 14th. So one of the things I mentioned in a few of these items, attachments, which I clearly forgot to attach. That's what I handed out to you here today. So the first one is one of those items. It's a resolution from 2011 where the auditors are really looking at that being a designation of requiring $250,000 remain in the building fund at any point in time. That's something that is a problem at times when budgeting. That means we have $250,000 that we could be spending on building repairs where we're not. So it's one of those things we would like to repeal that, and our recommendation would be to consider a resolution on January 14th repealing the fund balance requirement for the Building Maintenance Fund 031.
So what would you recommend?
That it
Doing
would
away
be
with it?
Well, but basically what we've kind of done with like the capital improvement plan fund, the capital improvement tax levy fund is a 15% of the budget basically. And so that's where it would be something that would change from year to year rather than being a stagnant number from year to year. This is a fund where there are really no new dollars coming in. There would be any sale proceeds from land or buildings that would go into this fund. But at this point, it was set up with the $250,000 coming from other areas, but there's not an ongoing funding source for it.
So, I guess clarification question, the language now says we have to have 250,000, so if we take 100 out to spend, then we have to re-put in 100, or is that the way that was why you're looking to change that? You would still allocate a certain percentage to that per year for based on budget?
Yeah, I think, you know, this is kind of considered one of our capital budgets, and so, yeah, having it in line with, you know, our capital improvement fund 030 would make it a little bit more consistent rather than just the set dollar amount. Basically, yes, the auditors are looking at do we have $250,000 in that fund at the end of each fiscal year? And so if there wasn't, then we'd likely be coming to you before June 30th saying we need you to transfer some dollars, whether local option sales tax or general fund balance, to that fund in order to make sure we're in compliance with this resolution.
So if we didn't keep, how much were you proposing keeping in there?
Making it consistent, yeah, with the capital improvement tax levy fund, which is 15%.
15% of the budgeted amount.
Mm-hmm.
So what?
You mean budgeted for maintenance only? Is that?
Yeah,
you've lost me somewhere.
Well, I mean, you could put that anyways, 15% of your expenditures. So if you were only planning to expend $100,000, that you would ensure there was a balance of $15,000 remaining there at the end of the year.
Okay, this is just what would be remaining, what you would keep left over in there.
Right.
To carry from.
Currently, we have to have
okay.
$250,000.
Mm-hmm.
Do we
right.
even need the fund?
Yes, there are a number of buildings which we're still doing repairs to, you know.
Yeah, but do we need, if we have the fund, do we even need to have a balance in it? Can we just use the fund as, float money in there to fix a building, and does it have to have a balance?
It does per the resolution. That's why we're asking you to.
Yeah, I understand that. But I mean, the change you want to make, does it need to have a balance?
I don't know if, you know, if I mean, we can budget buildings out of Fund 030. However, this was it was established for. It basically keeps your building repairs separate from any of your other capital purchases.
Okay, but it doesn't need a balance, does it?
If you change the resolution as it's written,
yes.
you could eliminate that requirement.
Yes.
And then it would have to be funded in another way. So through the CIP levy. In previous years, approximately 5 years ago, we used to do an annual allocation from the CIP levy.
Right.
We've eliminated that. So if you want to do it on an annual basis, you'd be taking away from the CIP levy in the capital project fund.
But if
it makes sense
if we take the money out of the capital improvement, isn't that a separate line item on our millage rate? If we take that out, they wouldn't be in the general fund request then?
The capital improvement tax levy is a completely separate tax levy
Right.
than the general fund. And
Right.
so it is broken out separately on our budget form and on our tax levy.
Right.
But where that money comes in is to Fund 030, which is the capital improvement tax levy
Right.
fund, not to Fund 031, which is the building maintenance fund.
Right.
Do we currently have $250,000 sitting there?
At the end of the year?
Yes.
I guess it doesn't make sense to me. You essentially allocate $250,000, you can't touch it all. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, me neither.
That's probably the simpler way to put it. Thank you, Councilmember. So if that's
it's just saying at year end we would have to have that. So if we have that now, are we actually looking to spend that on building maintenance this year? And if we don't keep it in there, where will it go? And then how do we fund building maintenance in the future? It sounds like through the CIP. So where would it go if we take it out now?
So it wouldn't be removing
this
any money, it would just
next
be
year.
allowing us to expend money without then having to potentially put money back in.
Okay.
And so that's where we do have a number of building projects that are in our capital improvement plan coming out of here. And so that's where it would then, if we have to transfer money back in from another source, then we need to identify that in the budgetary process.
Yeah, no, we don't want to do that.
That makes sense.
Don't want to do that.
Okay. Okay, next item. Do you want to go one by one here
Yes.
or? Okay.
Yes, because each one is a little bit unique and different. The Coliseum Fund, again, it's Fund 050. We can't find any history of why there was a separate fund other than to account for specific activities. But accounting for specific activities can be done through setting up a function within the general fund. I should also note that Fund 050 is part of the general fund as well in terms of what our auditors look at in terms of our financial statements. And so it's a very similar thing that I think right now the Coliseum Fund sits at like a negative $16,000 balance. To balance that fund, we have to transfer in from 001 to 050. If the concern originally when this was established, which we don't know, was that there needed to be a separate accounting, we can still accomplish that with this being in the general fund, with being, an activity code related to parks and recreation.
I would call that a housekeeping item. Everybody okay with this one? We can still account for it, just not have a separate fund. Okay.
The other one is the cash reserve fund. I should make a note that when we did do an amendment to the cash management policy, we did change that to 20%. So there isn't an issue here that basically there is not an issue with the inconsistency. However, the other part of this is what the language of the ordinance is, and that was on the back page of what I passed out to you. And I should say, first initially, when you look at the date that this was adopted in 1996, we understand that that was a very different time in the financial history of the city of Marshalltown, and a lot of things had just happened. What we're looking at here is keeping things consistent at 20%, knowing that we might not be fully funded each year. That's going to be something that we would bring forward to you as part of each budget cycle is here's what you need to do to fully fund at 20%. But what we would be looking at in terms of amending the ordinance would be to basically any excess use could be used to whatever would be subject to the council approval, as well as then that it did not need to be specifically utilized to cover normal and usual expenses as well as emergency needs. I think the best example I can give is we just went through a fairly big emergency where we had to put out some pretty big numbers in cash, and we did not have any cash flow issues through this latest civil emergency period. And so really this would just be amending the ordinance when we do the whole recodification to better reflect where we stand today and how different that is from 1996 in terms of uses of those dollars and how the council can authorize those.
Okay. Any questions about that one?
So we're going to reduce it?
No, I'm recommending we keep it at 20%.
Oh, that is, this,
I think our form says.
the recommendation is.
15.
And so that was where if they were inconsistent, taking it to 15% and follow the policy, not the ordinance. But since we're both policy and ordinance at 20%,
Okay.
that would be where I'd say let's keep it consistent at 20%.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. All right.
The next item, there had always been, prior to this current fiscal year, some general local option sales tax support to the general fund, which was 5%. As we go ahead and put this budget together, what we'd like to do is to just have your guidance to put 5%, or what we're estimating, $150,000 of the 22% council designated local option sales tax allocation, and just have that built into the general fund. It would certainly be something we would discuss in that bigger general fund picture when we know what our numbers look like, and is 150,000 enough? Is it too much? Where does that leave us?
Couple comments, please.
Yes.
First of all, would that include the 150,000? Is that would we include in that 150,000, we approved hiring an additional person out of the lost funds already this last year, and we used that for some other, that was a permanent thing. Will that come out of the 150,000, or is that on top of the 150,000?
That would be on top of, as we look forward, the early hiring of officers or the funding for the code enforcement inspector were things that came up as they went, and I believe in this past fiscal year were in addition to what that planned authorized transfer was.
So it's 150,000 plus those that are ongoing expenses. Could we have a total of those ongoing before we approve this? I want to know how much of that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and so those ongoing were ones that were just temporary to get them started in last fiscal year. So if you think about the early hire of a police officer, you might not have them budgeted, that new officer budgeted as a position, and what what you have in savings for someone retiring and someone being replaced. Those things didn't meet, and so those were one-time costs. So we can get you a listing of those one-time costs. The only one that's really been ongoing would be the code enforcement inspector position.
So can we have a rough idea what that costs us on top of the 150,000?
Yeah, and really what happened was in this current fiscal year that we're in, the code enforcement inspector became just a regular position. And so it was funding it for that time period to get it started sooner. So there is not ongoing local option sales tax support for these positions. They just became part of the general fund.
Oh, we had that much extra?
Well, that changes your number from year to year, basically. But we have not been using local option sales tax as ongoing support for police officer or code enforcement inspector position. And it's just been a one-time to get you through to your next fiscal year.
Through your budget process that you're working on right now, have you identified any items that you are going to request us over and above the 150,000?
We have not.
Okay.
There's a few positions mentioned below, but none of those would be ones that would incur additional cost beyond what's budgeted.
Okay, thanks.
So this would basically be like, it just helps us, it's a little bit different if we come to you and say we have a $10,000 deficit versus we have a $10,000 surplus, and the surplus is because we have this much local option sales tax. So it gives us the flexibility to start to plan a little bit better rather than how are we reducing in a scenario. But I honestly, we just got our numbers on Friday and we haven't messed with them yet, so I can't give you an idea what things look like right now to say whether this would be needed or not. But it's just a planning tool that we know if you're okay with us including it in sort of that initial general fund presentation, whether or not we need it can be talked about more at that point in time.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we, on the local sales tax, that the council still has control of where all that's going to go, and I.
Yeah, and so that would be, we would talk about it again when we present you the bigger general fund picture.
Thank you.
Okay, number 5.
So this is again related to capital improvement planning. We were looking at refurbishing the aerial fire truck in fiscal year 2021. And in this current fiscal year, we set up that we were going to pay what was an estimated $425,000 from cash from the CIP tax levy, setting aside equal amounts in 3 years with this current fiscal year, next fiscal year, and fiscal year 21. As the fire chief has gotten a more refined estimate, as this has gotten closer, the cost has completely changed to a point where putting aside either $800,000 for a refurbished truck or purchasing a new truck at $1.2 million, that's in an area where it becomes very difficult to continue to set aside that amount of money in basically next fiscal year 20 and 21. And so that's where we're looking for some direction right now as to whether you would like to borrow for the truck, that we can use that in planning, knowing that we obviously have some time here, or if you want us to plan that we should be using cash on hand or some combination of both.
What would the borrowing look like? Who would we borrow from?
It would be part of the 2021 bond, basically. So it'd probably be something that we would be borrowing for in fall of 2021, more than likely.
For the whole amount?
That's what we're just looking for some guidance on as we start to plan this, because this does have, if we have to use cash or some portion, it's going to have an impact on that capital improvement tax levy.
So the 400, excuse me, the 425,000 first year has already been done. You've set that aside already?
We set, yeah, about 160,000, I think, was what we've got set aside in this current fiscal year in this new Fund 032 for large item purchases. And so that would be, do you want us to continue to set aside that 425,000 as we have planned, and then the plan would be to borrow the remaining amount needed?
I guess I'd rather pay cash for as much as we can.
Okay. We can present what that looks like, you know, with the plan to have 425,000 cash by 2021, and then ultimately those numbers will get more refined as we go in terms of what the total price looks like in a conversation about.
Would it be too hard to show both sides of it? Could you do that?
Well,
because I know that you're going to have payments out of the general fund to pay the debt off.
it would be a debt service tax levy,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't be out of the general fund. It would be put on our tax levy, and so
I
that's where it's
understand
hard to
that.
project that right now. And there's a bigger decision in here that I don't want to talk about today, which is, do you refurbish or do you buy new? And so that's where we're working with a pretty big range. But if you're comfortable with, we have $425,000 cash, and that can be used to supplement. However, we'll continue with that plan. One of the other items that's come up is a janitorial position, a part-time janitorial position for the police and fire building. Currently, the police department has a vacant part-time records position, which they'd like to convert into this position, a janitorial position for the current fiscal year and in the future. And so if that's something that you would be okay with, we would go ahead and start moving forward with that and budget accordingly for next fiscal year, but move forward to make that transition in this current fiscal year.
If we need the records person now, we're going to need them in the future. Why don't we just look at a new position for a part-time janitor?
We certainly can. That can be something we can add in and see where things fall out and know that this is an option, moving forward.
I think if we need their record persons now, we're going to need them in the future.
Chief Tupper need to address it, but I believe that there's been a difficult time filling that records position, and that was why this was
just
kind of out there.
Mike Tupper, Marshalltown Police Department. We're trying to save money.
Yeah.
We've been doing our best to get by, and we have 2.5 records positions, and for the last several months we've just filled the 2 full-time positions, and we're trying to save money. So that's what it comes down to for us. I don't think staff, and I'm certainly not saying that we've never needed that half-time records position, or we might not need it. Again, we're doing our best to do our part to save money.
Okay.
And we know we're going to need a janitorial position. Yep. And to me, it makes 0 sense to move into this new building and not have a plan to take care of it. Yep. So we're doing our best to meet our needs and at the same time respect the city's budget and save some money.
Okay. Thank you.
We can show the budget for next year with both the part-time records position and the part-time janitorial, and just figure out where we go from there if reductions need to be made.
Well, maybe part-time is very part-time, not for the janitorial, but for the records position. If you were able to do with just somebody giving 8 to 10 hours a week or something like that, I mean, even that would be helpful. There could be people out there that don't want half-time position, but they would go quarter-time, that may be up somebody's alley.
Yeah, and first of all, I really appreciate your support of the police department and our needs. But the police department is one part of a larger organization. We get that. And it's one team, one organization, and the other departments have needs too. So my recommendation, for whatever it's worth, is that we move forward with the janitorial position and not add any other positions, and we do our best to save some money and see where we go.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Another item on number 7, which is listed, is dealing with TIF dollars that have been specifically taken from the downtown district for the facade grant program, which the Marshalltown Central Business District administers. This is part of a larger fund, which then is part of a sub area, which is then part of a sub area, basically again that we have to account for. And so, what would be easiest would be transferring the dollars to the MCBD for administration with an agreement that requires them to report quarterly on how those dollars are to be, how those dollars would be spent by the MCBD and what applications they've received. And so the current balance is $73,990. It would help us get rid of basically one more sort of level of accounting that we have to do on those TIF dollars from the downtown area.
When it comes to TIF money, I think we need to hold control of it all the way. If it was just general fund money, it's a different story, but when we're talking TIF money, I think the council needs to hold control of it. My personal feeling.
Well, and this is, it's not like an every month thing. It's kind of a once or maybe twice a year thing.
Right.
It's not.
Nothing big.
I don't think it's that big a deal. I think we better keep it for now. If there's an easier way to do the record keeping on our side, I'd be open to that.
Question here. Can CBD ask for a percentage increase from TIF, as wild as that might seem?
In the development or in the agreement with them to start July 1st of next year, you did approve a $4,000 increase in what they're getting this year.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, so that's something that did come before you this year. Okay, the next item is the CVB contract. This is one that we've talked about before where they're currently receiving 67% of hotel motel tax, and the council, the city is only legally required to utilize 50% of that tax for tourism purposes. And so I'm recommending that we begin work on a 2-year contract, stepping them down to that 50% level. And just looking for direction here to start conversations with them.
That's going to be a tough one.
None of these are easy.
Nope. Yeah, but this is the tougher one.
What, if you reduce that number, where does that number go?
Those dollars would then stay in the general fund to support general fund operations of the city. And so this is one of those that we talked about during strategic planning of, supporting outside organizations with existing funds and existing contracts or covering our own expenses. If this is one you want to defer and say wait until January 14th, I'm completely comfortable with that too.
One question, did you have can you give us the dollar amount that's going to affect?
Well, we estimate from year to year, and I did not put that dollar amount in there. I want to say in this year they're about $290,000 that they're receiving. And so I'm not sure if Brian is able to pull things up very quickly as I also try and look.
I have the to-date numbers. I don't have the for this year. If I can find it.
Well, if you get how much they get for this year, we know what the percentage is.
To date, we have received $326,000 in revenue, and we've paid $218 to them, which is the 65%. In fiscal year 18, they received $270.
Well, if you're going down to 50%, they'd get $160,000 instead of $218,000. Can they operate on $160,000?
That's just for basically 6 months of the year. This year is a weird year too, and we're going to be amending our current budget because of the tornado. We did see an increase in hotel motel taxes.
The 326, that's just 6 months number?
Yes.
Well, then just double that, right?
Well, no, because we're not expecting the same occupancy levels and, following quarter. So we have to make some amendments in our current year budget, but you could say this year with the 67% threshold, they will be receiving more because of the tornado, just as the city is receiving more with our percentage as well.
When do we have to re-amend that or start that new contract? I mean, do we have 6 months or 8 months?
You do, June 30th of 2019 is when the current contract expires.
I guess my preference would be that we wait on it. I mean, especially knowing how much work we're doing just downtown master plan alone, and I think they bring something to the table with regards to it. So I'd like to have a better understanding with regards to possibly what their budget is and how it's going to affect their operations as well. Reducing 17% is quite a big number.
Okay, we can wait.
Well, and I was thinking about just maybe stepping it down a little bit less over more years. And I know that's hard to commit a council to do, a future council, but.
Well, and that's where I was going to say 2021 is the important year here because that's where our financial picture changes. And so to have it at that 50% level by 2021 means that we have maximized the revenue that could come into the city on that versus potentially having to make some changes there. So that's the significance with fiscal year 2021 and that 2020, you know, we don't know what we need to know if we have a gap that needs to be filled and if this would be something to make, but 2021 really is that important year that's part of that recommendation.
It's also not a huge surprise because we've been talking about this and have bumped it down from where it used to be. I know it was in the 70% range
it's
years
gone
ago.
Down, yes,
Yeah.
over time.
We've pulled back there, so.
But we can bring this up again as we present the general fund if there is an issue there and talk about it. But it is one that it will, even if this year's budget's looking great, it's one that we do need to talk about for fiscal year 2021 because that's when our tax valuations will change negatively. Okay, the next one, number 9, the solid waste fee is one that we collect on utility bills, and it's one that has been used to support our contribution to the operating revenue of the Marshall County landfill, as well as paying for citywide cleanup events, as well as cleanup charges related to nuisance abatement and code enforcement. Over the years, this is something where we've kind of tracked what we've received and what hasn't been spent, and it's resulted in a fairly significant balance of about $480,000 in the general fund. There's kind of 2 phases to this of what we'd like to do. The first would be to transfer that current balance in this fiscal year to the dangerous and dilapidated building fund, which is likely where we'd be taking our match out of for the FEMA demo-related projects, as well as paying for any other properties. That was, again, a fund that really has no funding source other than previous borrowings, and then I think there was going to be some TIF in there related to some downtown houses as well, or houses in other areas. The other side would be that as we think about those monies coming in the future, that we would basically be planning for future fiscal years where we would still plan for the citywide cleanup and the nuisance abatement part of it, but then anything that would remain from what's budgeted to what's to be expended out would then also be transferred to Fund 355, which is the dangerous and dilapidated building fund. And there would then be an ongoing funding source for any building removal that needed to be done.
Any questions on that one?
Being an old utility guy, when the utility bills are bigger than what you need, you usually have take a look at the rates and make sure you're not overcharging the public. I don't have any problem with you transferring some of this money over, but I do have a problem if we're going to keep charging the customer more than it costs to operate, and that's not fair. That's not fair to them, and I think we ought to take a look at the rate. I would agree to do what you want to do, but I think we ought to have somebody take a look at the rate and make sure that we're not overcharging.
And we can certainly do that as part of our budget process, and yeah.
Do we know where we stand with the homes that may have to be totally demolished? Are we holding the bag in any way, or we just don't know what aid or whatever is out there?
Sure. Michelle Sponheimer, Housing Community Development Director. I'll take this one. We are finalizing information yet for FEMA that's due at the end of the month here as part of our public assistance declaration, where there might be assistance to help with the demolition of some of those properties that are a threat to safety and that essentially have been abandoned. So we will have some more refined information after the first of the year as to what that's looking like. And we're still seeing houses that are coming down on their own and things like that as well. So that'll continue to change. But as Jessica mentioned, we will have a matching component to those funds, as the public assistance covers 75% of those costs, and the city is responsible for 15%. So there will be a portion there for whatever, and that's only covering single-family residential. That would not address any commercial or industrial or multifamily that we may have to deal with.
Thank you.
A few months ago, well, maybe before the tornado, we already had 6 or 8 houses designated to come down, and we were told that the spec was being put together to get them down. We haven't done them yet?
No, we have not.
Why not?
We've been a little swamped. Yeah, we do have those on, and we have a couple that we have to continue to get the environmental finalization on for asbestos, and then we can let out that bid. And so we are working on that. We've been in this past 60-day window in getting the programs for Valor, and the demolition and the debris cleanup in the alleyways has been a major priority, which has consumed a very significant amount of time.
But we lost out on last year. We didn't get anything down last year, and we were going to get it made up.
There were 2 houses I think we took down last year, 519 North Center and 411 West Lynn.
Yeah.
But we had scheduled to have 6 to 8 houses every year taken down, and that isn't happening, and I want that to happen.
Right. It is on our.
And I would say what happened more to just explain it to everybody was a change in strategy, that we come into ownership of the properties before tearing them down, so that we have the ability to then get them out of that nuisance abatement cycle and county held tax certificate cycle. And so that's really where that takes additional time. But in that time that we have made that strategy move, there's other properties that we've been able to take tax deeds to, and so that's where I think our list is easily 8, and it might be even up to 10 right now. So, and it will probably continue to grow. So that's where just know that is stuff that's happening. And it was a strategy change that was delay in that, not the lack of work by city staff.
Okay.
Michelle, just for verification, when a property becomes on the list for dangerous and dilapidated, and we have decided there is no ownership of the owner of the property has basically forfeited all ownership. Is that correct?
Not necessarily, no. Now, when we get to a point where we actually do take control of a property, whether it be through like the 657A process or through a tax certificate process, then it does become the city's, and then at that point they have no ownership. We can declare a building dangerous and dilapidated and take action on it when it is still under private ownership. That does complicate it. It's more under our nuisance process, and it does complicate things in terms of notifications, and that's where we had made that change about taking ownership, as we saw some of the houses that we had intended on working on transferred ownership and then were occupied and trying to be lived in and fixed and things. So that process, there's different ways to approach it, but if we do get it under our control through acquisition of whatever means, then it would be up to the city to be responsible for.
I just know, and some properties that will now qualify for that are because of the tornado. And I know that there's just, again, people trying to figure out the best way, if their home needs to be demolish the best way and still get something out of it without turning it completely over to the city. And I know that's a
Certainly, we do have
balance people are
some
trying
owners that are trying to do that, and many of them are working with Mid-Iowa Community Action through a process there to see if there's assistance that might be available to help with those demolition expenses so that they can retain that property and perhaps
then
rebuild or whatever.
or do something. And I would certainly hope we're taking everything we can to make that possible for people.
Absolutely. We would love for property owners to take responsibility of that themselves and it not have to become a city issue. That would be the first priority.
Since there is this, some of this money comes through, well, is there any aid, and whether it could come from this type of a fund or not, for people who cannot afford the disconnection of water? I mean, I know this is solid waste fees, but many people are still having difficulties in the disconnection of the water fees. So is there anything like this fund, if we have an extra fund, could be used for that type of assistance to families who, whose homes qualify for that but are struggling to meet the fees?
I would say at this point, particularly if it's related to the tornado impact, probably the best reference would be to Mid-Iowa Community Action. And then, although they are not necessarily having new funds available for folks, there is a process that will go through the Long-Term Recovery Committee for where prioritization of funds that have been donated through that source should be used. And so for the individuals to go through that process and prioritization, if that's an assistance they're needing, that would be my recommendation at this point.
Very good. Thank you very much.
The Salvation Army is helping with some of those too.
And one of the things that both the city and Waterworks have done is allowing a waiver. I'm not sure what it's, an affidavit or something to be signed that things can be cut at the curb and not taken all the way back to the main if the intent is to rebuild within 2 years. And so that's one thing that's been put in place.
That's been in place for a long
time.
Yeah, that's been in place.
I do appreciate all the organizations and the long-term housing committees working with folks, because I know it's a very big struggle, and people want to retain the ownership of what they have. So thank you.
I think Micah's got some too. I'm pretty sure they do.
So on number 9, we're okay with the fund transfer and looking at the solid waste fee.
Yep, that's what we will do.
Number 10.
Number 10, the last one here is looking at our transit operations, that we have only 2 part-time employees of 5 positions. We've had some significant overtime costs related to trying to have a warm body in a bus to fill a route of about $28,000 annually, and that hasn't included the director's time and driving routes as well. And so what we're recommending is that we add 1 full-time position and continue to budget for the remaining 3 part-time employees moving forward. It's the part-time positions are very difficult to fill with no benefits, and there being a split shift. And so this would be something we'd like to start this current fiscal year, but would have an impact on next fiscal year's budget as well.
Any questions on that?
No. Yes. I think there's, and we've had this discussion before, and I've been in a couple of meetings. I just think our transit system is too large as it is, too many routes, too many whatever, and too costly. So that's my stance on that.
And one thing I should still say is, that Iowa State, our project with them, again with the tornado, is basically put that on hold. And so we're hoping in 2019 to get things back moving on sort of their study of our transportation system, our transit system, and see if there are any changes that they're recommending we make.
Okay. Do you have enough information?
I feel like we do, that we can get things prepared and come back to you on January 14th with what our first items will be on that one.
Okay, great.
Could I ask one question about the budget, since we're talking about budget items? Have you and the staff had any discussions about raising our part-time help so we can hire people?
So that, yes, as we've gone through each departmental budget, we've made those adjustments sort of as we've gone within each of those budgets. So there's not sort of like a schedule across the board for part-time wages. It's within each individual department, and we've had those discussions with each individual department.
Could you get that information to us so we can see what because I know we had a real problem hiring people last year because our wage rate for part-time people in the summer was low.
I don't know that I can get that to you now, just because I'm not sure what's all entered, but that's something that when it comes to discussing the general fund, we can make sure that we discuss part-time wages that are budgeted in total.
Okay. We have reached the time for public comment. Are there comments or questions from the public not related to what we had talked about already?
Sarah Reservoir, Library Director. I'd like to just take a couple of minutes and recognize one of our longtime volunteers passed away at the beginning of December, Helene Adele. Helene was a volunteer for about 13 years at the library, a wonderful woman who also volunteered for Emergency Food Bank and House of Compassion. Helene was 86 years old. She had just been at the library a few days before. We were all very shocked and saddened when we saw that she'd passed away, but she was, again, one of our wonderful community members that volunteers, and so many people give up their time and to the library and other worthy organizations. And I just want to say how sad we are to her family and how much we really appreciated the time that she gave to the library.
Thank you. Other comments?
Brandon Mitchell, 3141 Garwin Road.
You can pull the microphone up if you want. There you go.
I'm bidding on the trees here that the tornado damage caused, and I've ran across a lot of trees that have numbers on them but are not on this bid page. So I'm trying to figure out, do we still cut those trees down, not get paid for them, or how do you?
No, the only trees that are part of the bid process are the ones that are in the request for proposal.
Okay, I've seen numbered.
Yeah, and there were some that if we'd already identified them as needing to come down prior to the tornado, they're not eligible for FEMA funding. So there are some that are marked which are not included in the bid packet for those reasons.
With the same colored paint. Mm-hmm. Trees that have the same numbers on them, though, that's not a confusion on anybody's part?
Yeah, if you would, you can contact me and I can answer any questions, but what you're bidding on is what is in the bid packet.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if there's a tree with the same number on it, which tree do you pick?
I was going to say, if we can talk outside of this meeting about that, I'll clarify that for you.
Okay.
So, yeah, but what is in the bid packet is what is to be bid on.
I'll get Ms. Kinzer's number for you and stop up in just a sec for it, okay? Okay, great. Any other questions? Comments? Sorry, yes.
Anna Wolvers again, 213 Thomas Drive. Doesn't necessarily pertain to me, but as a citizen, active member on social media and seeing public comment and being it's the day after Christmas, I know there was some concern about contractors doing work and then making progress for those homeowners and then being told by the same inspector that issued the permit or whatever to do that work that the inspector made an error in that it's no longer a valid permit, and the contractor's having to eat the cost of that, upwards of $8,000. I don't see that they're here or they would speak on their own behalf, but that was quite a big discussion. So as a contractor, if they make an error, they're normally held responsible for those financially. And being there's a lot of businesses and public people that are in that same process, many of my own coworkers at the school, something to look out and consider. And I know that contractor that was raising concerns was looking for information and has maybe contacted you, but just something to be aware of that some of the public are dealing with, I guess. And like I said, it doesn't pertain to me, but knowing that there was a lot of discussion on that, that is concerning.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments?
Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. Everyone remembers Bob Schubert, and I remember him very well. In 2001, he played Santa Claus for my grandson that just recently was killed in a vehicle crash. And thank God for him, and thank God for my movie. And I want to just put that out there. Everybody loved Bob Schubert, and I did.
Thank you, and we're really sorry for your loss. Any other comments?
Wendy Reisinger, 507 Woodbury. I heard a comment about cleaning up the city alleys. During or after the tornado, we were told we could put our debris either at the alley or in front of our properties. Then it was deemed, no, you had to put it on the city terrace. We still have, I believe, 7 properties down our alley between 7th and 5th Avenue in the alley. When it snows, it's going to be about waist deep, if not shoulder high, because of the amount of debris that is still there that the city said, we'll take care of it. It's all trees. There is some building debris. Who's going to take care of it? And also on the transit, yes, I have one city bus that comes by my house, once per day with 1 passenger. Yes, we need to downsize not only our city bus system, but also our school bus system. I get up to 15 buses a day past my home. We don't need that many buses. If the elementary and the junior high and the high school can't get along on a bus, then they need to walk. I did when I went to school. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. All right, seeing none rise, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 21.5 subsection 1 paragraph I of the Code of Iowa to evaluate the professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's reputation, and that individual requests a closed session.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Lamer,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Gowdy.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell. This is for you.